Hello everyone, my name is Mark Wedge, and welcome to the Wedge Adjustment, the second episode of the show. This, of course, is the week following the race in Fontana, California, the Auto Club 400, and the week leading up to the STP 500 this weekend at Martinsville Speedway. And if you watched the race this past Sunday, you'll remember that there were tons of tire problems all weekend, but especially during the race, when teams were pushing their cars and their setups to the absolute limit, and the strain on the tires was at its maximum during the event. And a lot of really good drivers had tire problems all weekend, such names as Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Clint Bowyer, Marcus Ambrose, and six-time champion Jimmy Johnson. And it actually kind of cost Jimmy Johnson a potential win. He was leading toward the end of the race, tire went down, and that was the end of the 48's run for the win that day. Now, as always happens, fingers are being pointed in all different directions by all the different people. NASCAR is saying that these were the same tires that, Goodyear delivered last year. There was not a problem last year, and they used these on many tracks like California, and there wasn't an issue. Goodyear is saying the same thing. The tires are fine. That was not the issue. They think that the drivers' setups and the team's setups pushed the tire too far, given the track conditions. The teams, on the other hand, are saying, NASCAR gave us these car changes this year, the setups are different, the tire needed to change along with those. Part of the problem is, when you hear people talk about the Auto Club Speedway, and a lot of the other tracks on the circuit now that haven't been repaved in a while, you'll hear them say the track has a lot of character. And what that means is that it's very bumpy. And as the teams were putting low air pressures in the tires as part of their setups to get the best running car possible, these low air pressures would result in tires hitting those bumps and just getting shredded. You see the same kind of effect at a place like Pocono or Indianapolis, where there's a speed bumper on the apron of the racetrack, and when a low air pressure tire runs over one of those, the tire normally gets shredded to pieces and blows. And so while there's no speed bumper at California, and certainly had there been, the racing would not have caused any drivers to go over it, the bumps on the track cause the same exact effect. And what teams are saying is, if you give us these car changes and give us the ability to put, forth these setups that have these low air pressures, the tire needs to be able to stand up to it. NASCAR and Goodyear are saying, don't set the car up to where the tires will blow and shred on tracks that haven't been repaved in a while. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out going forward, because there are tracks on the schedule still, obviously with just 5 races in, that have the same situation. Atlanta comes to mind. That's probably the biggest one, the oldest set of pavement. It'll be interesting to see at places like Pocono, where we saw a few tire issues last year, whether or not that's an issue. I remember Jimmy Johnson had a tire blow in, I think it was the first Pocono race. I may be wrong about that. And the car just went straight into the wall, and that ended his day there. And we saw, he didn't go into the wall at California, but it was toward the end of the race, and he lost enough track position, and the car was damaged enough to where he wasn't going to be able to win after the tire went. So a lot of really good teams were upset about that, and I think it's going to be an issue going forward during the season, because these changes in the cars are here to stay, which means the changes in setups will probably be here to stay as well. So unless Goodyear decides to do something with the tire, I think we're going to see tire issues going forward, and I think it's something that teams are going to have to deal with when they're designing their race trims each week. Now, some other news coming out of California is the rookie Kyle Larson. He won the Nationwide Series race. He finished second in the Sprint Cup race after just a fantastic charge to the front on that final restart. Kyle Busch was able to get the win, and it was kind of a reversal of what happened in the Nationwide Series. But Larson definitely demonstrated why he's a strong Rookie of the Year candidate. And, it was actually a really good race for all of the young drivers. Most notably, I think, was Danica Patrick's performance. She finished 14th. You had Austin Dillon, who finished 11th, and, he moved up to 9th in the points. So I think this Rookie of the Year battle between Dillon and Larson especially is going to be really fun to watch going forward. And I think the rookies from last season, Danica and Ricky Stenhouse, have already shown improvement this season. So watch for them to develop further into better drivers as we go along. But this really large rookie class this season is really performing well so far, especially the 3 and the 42, obviously, because they have the most funding what with organizations like RCR and Earnhardt Ganassi backing them. It's kind of hard to beat that if you're a rookie, running races for a smaller team that doesn't have the same number of resources. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, it was Heartbreak Hotel for Jeff Gordon, who was leading the race after Jimmy Johnson blew his tire. He was running second behind Johnson when that happened. And Gordon took the lead. He looked like he was home free, and then all of a sudden tires started coming apart. We saw Marcus Ambrose lose one, and then we saw Clint Bowyer lose one. And Bowyer spun out when his tire went flat. Caution came out. Gordon didn't get a good restart when they finally did restart the race. And he dropped back to 13th, where he finished. I have nothing against Clint Bowyer. I don't think he did it on purpose. But did anybody else find it kind of like situational irony that he was the one that cost the 24 a potential win? Obviously, when you're going 200 miles an hour and your tire blows, you can't help but spin out. It clearly wasn't intentional on Clint Bowyer's part, but it was just kind of entertaining that after all that he and Gordon have been through in the past couple seasons, all the conflict and all that it was just kind of, it was funny that here we go again. The 15 spins out and Jeff Gordon loses a potential win or whatever objective he was going for, whether it was making the chase last season or getting the win this past weekend. So that was entertaining. Obviously, nobody's saying that Clint Bowyer did that on purpose. I don't think he did. But it still is kind of ironic that that's the driver that brought out the caution. Now, speaking of Jeff Gordon and really Hendrick Motorsports in general, we're headed to Martinsville this weekend, and that's a place where Gordon and Johnson especially are really, really strong. Combined, they just dominate that track. Hendrick got their first win there. They have, I think it's up to 21 wins now at that track, so they're going for 22 this weekend. I think both Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon showed that they are strong enough to win races. Last week I saw Jimmy Johnson get back to where he was last season. I think running for the championship at the end of the year, the team neglected to kind of be as prepared as they normally would have been with the changes coming for 2014. But after this past weekend, there's really no doubt in my mind that team is back, and they will be winning races at some point. Jeff Gordon obviously came achingly close to winning this past weekend as well. And, Martinsville, he won last October. Don't ever root against Jeff Gordon at Martinsville. So I'm watching Hendrick Motorsports this weekend. We haven't seen Casey Kane do much in the 5, so I'm not really sure what's up with that team right now, but keep an eye on him as well. You never know, this could be the race where he turns it all around. And obviously Dale Jr. has been like the superstar of this season with the Daytona 500 win, the 2 second-place finishes. So watch for Dale Jr. too, because he ran very well here last October as well. But as far as my pick, I'm going to go with either the 24 or the 48, I think, for this week's Admin Championship competition. Last week, my pick had tire issues. I think he would have done well had that not happened, but we'll never know. But this week, I think it's a pretty safe bet that Hendrick is going to be strong here. Regardless of which team it is, one of them is going to have a good run, unless just the bottom falls out or some random problem sweeps through mechanically, which is not unheard of. But given the numbers, I think Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson are the best bets. I'm going to pick one of them. I don't know which yet. And I would go with one of those two guys as well for fantasy teams if you do that, or just if you like to predict the winner. So, watch for the admin picks. You have a 50-50 chance of guessing mine, but it'll be interesting to see what Matt and Reggie decide to do. But it's going to be a very exciting race this weekend. Martinsville always is quite a show. I love having Fontana and Martinsville back-to-back because the tracks are so different, and yet the racing is so exciting at both of them. Martinsville is just one of those classic NASCAR tracks. The paperclip design, the short track. I would honestly love to see more tracks like it. So I am all out of time. This has been the Wedge Adjustment. Thank you for listening. If there's anything you want us to talk about on the show or questions to answer, please drop us a comment at the bottom of this post or on the Facebook page, and we'll have another good show next week talking about Martinsville and then projecting ahead to Texas. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. This is Mark Wedge for the Wedge Adjustment, and I will see you at the racetrack.